All right, everybody. Well, hey, we are rocking and rolling here. We are in the final stretch here in the last 2 hours of Punch a Pod Pitch, and I'm excited to have a very special guest on here. I met this lady recently out at the most recent Austin Podcasters meetup couple weeks ago, and she's got a great message, a great thing she's starting with her podcast. And I'm going to probably butcher this, but Prajinta Pesqueda, Lily for short, she goes by, is the host of the NARC podcast. Now, what the NARC stands for is Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Collaborators. It was born out of tragedy and conceptualized out of the desire to survive and help others who might be experiencing similar trauma. Healing is a multifaceted and challenging endeavor, and NARC would like to make that journey easier. PJ Pesqueda has been a teacher for over 40 years in both high school and college classrooms. She possesses a master's degree in communications, English, and guidance and counseling. She'll be collaborating with others, including Beth Emery, who's a licensed social worker and business degree, and others who will contribute with monthly interviews. Ms. Pesqueda began writing articles for Medium after covert narcissistic husband suddenly discarded her in June of 2019. In the months that followed, the success of her writing has grown to podcasts, a website, and blog that will be up and running soon, and other platforms and social media things. I hope you tune in to her journey and learn a lot of things that will help you and others on their healing journey. And so we're honored to have you tonight on Pitch a Pod Pitch.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about NARC. I mean, you've got really kind of a personal side to it in launching this aspect of it. And we were talking at the meetup there, and you guys are really, really passionate about getting this out there and helping others that are going through the same thing, right?
Absolutely. I have met so many people in the last 7 months who want to take their experiences and somehow leverage that into something that they can use to help others. I think that that's just part of the progression of feeling better, is to figure out what you can do to help others, because I think there's some healing to be had through helping others heal. So from my own personal experience, this whole journey began back in June, 7 months ago. And I've always been a writer, but I hadn't been writing about this because I wasn't too sure what was happening until I was in it a little bit more. I know when I was in school, the whole topic of narcissism was like one chapter in a psych book, and we didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about it. And I think it's definitely a growing phenomenon. We see it in all aspects of our society at all levels. We see leaders, top CEOs, people in power who definitely seem to have some kind of personality disorder that is accepted, because these people are often very charismatic and charming and high functioning. So it's kind of a shock for people to know that there's a whole darker side to that persona, and that behind that mask, there's a very dysregulated, maladapted individual that's struggling with lack of emotions and empathy and things like that. So it's definitely something that's coming into public awareness. It's getting on people's radar. I know when it was probably the end of July before I started writing the articles for Medium. And since then, I've done quite a few. And I've received so much feedback from those articles, with people reaching out and saying, wow, that really resonated with me. Now this part makes sense, and that part makes sense. And I'm doing my own due diligence in trying to dig a little deeper and unpack all the parts of this that I need to process it for my own recovery. And getting that kind of feedback and validation from people who are suffering and who are just, their world is turned upside down, it is very rewarding.
I would imagine so, because anytime when you go through something traumatic, holding it in, hiding it, really kind of makes it fester, and I think makes it worse for a lot of people. And being able to share this not only is very courageous on your part, but also I'm sure it's healing being able to share that, and then also helping others to heal as well too, as you're finding and getting feedback and hearing other stories of discovery and things like that, huh?
I'm learning and growing as I go, and I think it's helping me a great deal to be of service to others. There's just so much misinformation about it. One of my main purposes for doing this podcast is to educate. And being a teacher with so many years in the classroom, that's just very easy for me to pop into that whole didactic mode and try to lead people to a higher understanding of something. That's what I do all day. I'm still teaching in the classroom 10 hours a day. So I do want them to understand that everyone has a little bit of narcissism, but we're talking about on the DSM chart, on the spectrum of cluster B disorders. Narcissism is right there with sociopathy and psychopathy. And these individuals, whether it's a parent or a spouse or whoever it is, wreak quite a bit of havoc in the lives of people who are close to them. Mm-hmm. So I want to educate people about, there's a whole language, vocabulary of terminology that goes just with the whole cluster B disorders. And I have discovered that as far as therapists go, there's a dearth of therapists in Austin and everywhere. I would think Austin would be, of all places, in the vanguard of leading the whole awareness about this thing. But they're not. There's a handful of people with a long waiting list, and so many therapists have not been trained. They don't know how to respond. And to go to treatment and get a generic blanket, oh, you're going through a divorce, let's march you through the 7 stages of grief, is really inappropriate and can be counterproductive. There are specific things happening in the recovery of something like this. Trauma bonding, cognitive dissonance, gaslighting, blame shifting, repression, projection, word salad. There's just a million things that are pretty much specific to this cluster B category of disorders that these therapists need to be aware of in order to help their clients, to help their patients. You see a growing number of life coaches and people like this who specialize in narcissistic abuse recovery. There's a reason for that, because there's a gap in the market of mental health providers who can actually address the issue. So education is a big part of it. Also, instead of just making it like a textbook, I hope that the podcast can also show the human side of it. We're going to have one interview per week. I just finished my first interview this past weekend with a person that I had met through some of these support groups here, and she talks about her experience in recovery. And I think that it's just absolutely imperative that you build your own tribe of support, because unless you have experienced something like this, you really don't believe it. It's almost unbelievable what it's like and what the issues can be and how difficult they are to resolve. A lot of the people involved in it have addictions, not in the sense of substance abuse, but behavioral addictions, like they're love addicts or relationship addicts or something like this. They have codependency, some of them, other attachment disorders, anxious attachment styles. There's just a lot of things to complicate it, to make recovery difficult, to be able to separate and get those healthy boundaries, to get to a place where you have your identity intact, separate from the narcissist. So through these interviews, through the subject matter we're going to cover, hopefully we can offer tips for healing, to look at ways where people can make progress. One of the scariest things I can tell you about what I've seen so far is that in a lot of these meetings, some people are progressing very well, 1 year, 2 year out. They seem to be able to chart kind of like a progression of being able to be better. But there's other people in there who are 8, 9, 10 years out, and they're right where they were in the first year, and they're stuck in a loop. And I think all of us are kind of terrified that we're going to end up like that and be one of the ones that never leaves that place of confusion and shock and frustration and hurt and doubt and despair and just all these terrible things. So that's my intention. I have many pieces to the podcast. I'm going to have a website that's going to go up in the next few weeks.
Nice.
On the website, we're going to link everything together. The Medium articles that I have written were the springboard for the podcast. I harvested those topics to make the podcast. So they, in many ways, go together. But I'm also developing, I have a Facebook group called NARC, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Collaborators, that you can join on Facebook. I'm also going to have, I have Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, a lot of different places to go to just look around, get information, connect with other people, do some collaboration, just maybe read an affirmation or a scripture or something like that to help. So there's going to be a lot of moving pieces that will be available on that website.
Right. Well, you've done a great job of building that community around that, but also you've been leveraging your local community as well too here in Austin too, the experts to help you get resources and get things rocking and rolling too. How important has that been?
Well, it is important to connect with the people who are experiencing this and with the mental health professionals. I have found a few that we may be talking with in coming weeks and months who can shine some light on this whole process. I think everybody's quick to say that there's a lot of different modalities for healing that are out there. I know over the summer, and thank goodness I'm a teacher and I was off over the summer, so the worst part of this, I had off for vacation, and that's how I spent my vacation this summer of 2019 was trying to get my footing enough to return to work. And there's just so much conflicting information. Some will say, well, you need medication. You need to have prescriptions to regulate your moods, SSRIs and neurotransmitter blockers. And it's a chemical thing in the brain and the body, and you have to have some medicine to help you deal with that. And they were handing me prescriptions right and left to do that. I know that I went to acupuncture. I went to healers, energy healers, doing pranic healing and meditation. I went to Reiki to get Reiki massage. I've been looking into the craniosacral massage to try to do that. I've been reading every book I can get my hands on. I did divorce care, which is a scripture-based divorce recovery program at the church.
But a lot of resources for you, basically.
Also many resources, and it's really like a buffet.
Right.
You have to go through the line and try it. Just try a bite and see if it fits you, and if it doesn't, put it down and just pick the things that do work for you, and just kind of maybe take that approach, because there's just so much out there. There's even programs online.
Right. Lily, I don't want to cut you off. We're running out of time here on your session here for you, but you've done an amazing job. You've got a long way to go, but you've got some great people, great resources, and doing a tremendous job. So we look forward to your success with NARC, and look forward to what the rest of the year holds for you.
Yes, you can search for me, Pesqueda, the last name, and then NARC, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Collaborators, and I should pop up on most of these sites. Yep. Sometimes the username's a little bit different, but searching my last name and then the NARC and then the whole thing, you should be able to locate me.
Yeah, we've also got a link on the Mass Media Summit.live with your logo that'll take them straight to your podcast as well for you as well.
Awesome, too. And I have a Gmail address. It is NARC2Thrive. That's NARC, the number 2, and then thrive at gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Lily. Thank you so much for being a part of Petcha Pod Pitch.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. That was